We've got Brett Dolan with us on the Lewis Automotive Hotline. Of course, you hear and see Brett on Razorback telecasts, ESPN Plus. He's on Perfect Game. He's on Touchdown Radio. And MLB Network last week. Brett, which game did you have?
I had Padres, Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. So that's a special place, and it was fun to get back and work again there.
That's a fun rivalry to be a part of. Those are two teams that still really don't like each other, and the managers don't like each other either.
Yeah, it's what makes it fun, and I was there for the Wednesday game. The previous game, Ohtani had been hit, and Tatis, and the day after I left, Ohtani got hit again, and the managers kind of went after each other behind home plate when the benches emptied, and I sat with both of them in their office, and they said all the right things, but you could tell that they wanted nothing better than to beat the other, and that, of course, makes for a real good rivalry of sorts.
Sounds like Patino and Cal talking about each other before the March Madness game, right?
No, there's no doubt. I mean, even Dave Roberts, we sit in his office, and he's doing the Zoom with Vasgersian and Verducci, who are back in New Jersey, but I'm sitting right next to him, and they're talking about what took place, and we're trying to figure out what, we could kind of say on air, and then also kind of understand that we may not say on the air. And, no, there's no doubt that as much as they might downplay aspects of it, they want to crush each other, so it does have a very ring to it.
We saw earlier today, and I have to look at my photos to just detail all the guys and where they're going, but the Razorback player development account for baseball sent out where all the guys are going to play for summer ball. Brenton Clark, Steel Eves, Tyler Holland, the California Collegiate League, Carson Willis, who may be the backup catcher next year, is playing in the Rocky Mountain League. Gackle, Gibbler, Helfrich, and Kojal are trying out for Collegiate Team USA, and then Cujillo, Dietz, Colin Fisher, and Tate McGuire are in the Cape Cod League. You ever been to the Cape League?
I have, but it's been a long time. I had a AAA All-Star game at Pawtucket, and I had an off day, and I drove over and saw portions of like 3 different games for a couple of innings. One was in Cotuit, one was at Sandwich, which doesn't have a team, but they did that night. And I'd like to go back. I feel like maybe the best thing DVH gets to do, and it's under the guise of both a vacation for his wife and also still working, is when he sneaks out there for a week and kind of bounces around to see his guys. And maybe there aren't as many as years past, but maybe we should figure out a way to go out there to the Cape for 2 or 3 days and see a couple of games.
I'm all for it. Absolutely. Dietz, well, this is a huge summer for Dietz. You think of the jumps that Vahiva took from the Cape, even after playing half a season, and maybe the biggest jump is what we saw from Helfrich and just how his approach at the plate was a little bit different. For Dietz, I just think you want to see that he's able to pitch. We only saw him a couple times this year. Colin Fisher, Tate McGuire, these are guys that I think in our minds are candidates for the starting rotation, but I'm thinking maybe more midweek. And with Cujillo Aloy, it's time to learn how to play right field because he needs to be there next year.
Yeah, he needs to learn a position, and this might be an opportunity to do so. And obviously, I don't think the last month was what he wanted either from a batting standpoint, so it'll be a good opportunity for him. But, it was Ryder Helfrich who used the Cape last year to really kind of propel himself forward. He had 10, 11, 12 home runs, and everything kind of took off for him, so maybe that'll be the case. And, Dietz, it's amazing to have a guy, a premium pitching prospect that has been through injuries. It's like an expensive car. You don't want to drive it too hard, and you're always worried you're going to put too many miles on it. But at some point, you got to get it out on the freeway and go because that's why you have it. And Dietz, if he could just find that health and a little bit of the rhythm, then he has a chance to obviously make an impact, but maybe more so as far as an important standpoint for him than others, just because he hasn't had the innings or outings at Arkansas over these last 2 years.
Got the draft coming up in just a little bit here, Brett. Looks like it's July 13th through July 14th at the All-Star game. You think there's going to be any guys that are draft eligible for this team that are coming back? You think Iredale makes it back? You think Justin Thomas Jr. will make it back? Beidel Shees? These are guys that I think could go, but I also think there's a chance they make it back.
Yeah, my first blush would be they would all go in some capacity. The Justin Thomas Jr. is a curious one because, in lack of having a number of things to do, I've seen a lot of these draft reports from different services, Baseball America, D1, and down the list. And, you look at the top few rounds and you see all of those players that are expected to go highly. And, Thomas Jr.'s name's not on there, but it doesn't mean he couldn't be an 8th or a 9th round pick or somewhere. I think he'd obviously be in the top 10 rounds to leave when you have eligibility remaining. And, obviously an incredible performance at times in the postseason. I would think someone would take him. The Bible Shoes one's interesting because he was supposed to be at the MLB Draft Combine in Phoenix, and of course he had other things to do, like being in Omaha, but that might have been an opportunity missed when it comes to a professional standpoint, although he did pitch well, of course, at Omaha. So my first instinct is that they'll all be gone, but I guess we'll find out.
You watched much of the draft yesterday. We got 18 freshmen. You had a couple. The first SEC players were out of Texas and out of Oklahoma. They were. It was just something to see all these really young guys going. 18 freshmen, Brett. That's a record. And I wondered, watched and what you thought of that.
NBA draft is a hard watch, and in part because we don't know a lot about some of the foreigners, and even the players that did get drafted, as you mentioned, were freshmen. I think Cal had a streak that was broken of I don't know how many years in a row where he had a first-round pick. An obscene streak, 15, 18, 19, whatever it was, years in a row. But more curious than probably as invested as I will be when it comes to the Major League draft, where we could have 2 guys go in the first round.
Nobody does a draft like the NFL. I mean, you can I'm sure they do, put on a seminar as to how to put a draft on. I agree. I think the NBA draft, I watched about the first, up to 19 or 20 picks, but I think hard watch is a proper way to look at it. And it's not like watching the Major League Baseball draft is the most exciting thing either, but they've tried to do something with it by moving it to the All-Star game. I just love the idea they had in 2020, which was shut down by the pandemic, of having the draft in June, where it always used to be until the pandemic, and doing it in Omaha. I want to see the day where college baseball and Major League Baseball get back to moving closer together towards each other, because right now, Major League Baseball does no favors for college baseball. Not like they have to, but they certainly don't do any.
No, and DVH and all the coaches, I'm sure, would be leading that charge right with you. And I think that makes sense to not just move it up, but to try and make it a bigger deal. I mean, I was even asking about our guys, like Gage and Fahiva, yesterday. What do they do? I mean, you can't really go home. I mean, you don't want to shut it down for a couple of weeks because you might get sent out to the minor leagues, but you're in this holding pattern because you don't know where you're going or what's going to take place, and your season is over, and it's obviously not good timing. Maybe felt more so than ever before with these 34-man roster limits. I mean, it felt like for the coaches, they didn't have much margin of error when it came to, are we going to get all of our players to campus? We expect to lose 3, but we lost 5, and what that looks like. Now you really are in a bind when you're trying to piece out a 34-man roster, and the draft comes after the transfer portal heyday.
Well, you're right about that. It's never going to be easy for college baseball coaches to put teams together. As long as you got guys coming out of high school for the draft. I mean, there's 5 players, I think, that are on the Arkansas incoming class of 19 freshmen that are probably being drafted. And you just have to accept that, you sign 15 players. There's going to be 5, 6 of them that don't make it to campus, and that's just always the way it's been. It's just you knew what your team would look like because that would happen in June, not July, and that's the worst part about it. I'd just like to move it back.
Well, you think about this, and you go back to last year, Phil, and I think we contrasted and compared these last couple of teams, and this year's team was better than last year, and we kept talking about last year's team not being good enough. If you put Dave into a corner and you would say, why wasn't last year's team good enough? He would say, we had 4 or 5 guys that won the first couple of rounds, and we expected to get 1 or 2 of those guys. Aiden Miller, you go down the list of all these talented players, and you don't get them, and you kind of assume you'll get 1 or 2. That does set you back, and it sets you back when you can't make up for that. And I think that's what these coaches just lay awake at night hoping doesn't take place.
Yeah. How much money do you think Gage Wood made by that no-hitter? That's the kind of performance that you said, like Beidelshees misses the combine, but if you throw in 98 miles an hour and 97 on your 119th pitch on national television and throw in a historic no-hitter, that's better than going to the combine, right?
Yes. And, Gage would have been quietly moving up these lists. I was thinking him in the first round, and that's pretty heady stuff for a guy who, about 2 weeks into the season, looked like he might be in danger of losing most of his season. And then you're thinking about, well, you put in all this work to be a starter. It's your third year. Things aren't going right. And then to see him get stronger at the end, and even though he had a couple of starts where you could tell things didn't go well early, we saw the stuff and we saw the ability, but for him to put it together and do so on that stage, and it's something that even non-college baseball fans are talking about. I think it was just incredible for him, and I who knows, we might see him in that 13 to 18 range in the first round, and I haven't looked what that money is like, but that's got to be in the $4.5 million range.
Yeah. BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball in full swing and football season right around the corner, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting. From MLB, UFC to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains your choice for sports wagering information. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. BetOnline. The game starts here.